Did you know you could sponsor Nerd and Tie? That's right. By going to nerdandtie.com and clicking on the sponsorship information, we would say something nice about you. We'd put your name big up on the screen, and we would just be generally cool dudes. Just go to nerdandtie.com, click on the sponsorship information, and follow the route from there. Or you could always contribute to our legal fund at gofundme.com/nerdandtie.
On this fortnight's edition of Nerd and Tie, we have our first thoughts on Star Trek Discovery. Star Wars Episode 9 has a director. Sabrina the Teenage Witch is getting rebooted. All that and con news this fortnight on Nerd and Tie.
Woo! Yeah.
Yay.
I'm kind of happy that wasn't that I didn't have to talk at 20 miles a minute to get all the things that we were covering in the intro. That was nice. Oh, what a pleasure. Welcome, listeners and the occasional YouTube watchers, to Nerd and Tie.
The whole 24 people who tune into the YouTube version.
There are 24 people who I treasure. Each and every one of them, except for Axel Little, the Axolotl. He's weird.
It's okay. I don't work that hard on it.
All right. Not working himself too hard is the Shamara-esque Trey Dorn.
I have yet again accidentally cosplayed Shamara. This is not on purpose, and on the video version, I'm right over the picture of Shamara, so it all works out.
That's real good.
And with a smile bright enough to outshine the sun, my old buddy Gen.
It's only because my fluorescent lamp here is very bright.
I was trying to compliment you. You look so happy.
I had a good day at work.
Better than
we
a
had
bad
pizza
day.
for dinner, so.
That's a great combo. Good day at work, pizza for dinner. Sometimes that's as good as it gets during the week.
And I have a buttload of candy at my house, so.
Nice.
Yay.
Save some for the chillins. It's gonna be trick or treat time soon.
Nope.
No, give them toothbrushes.
They're gonna need it.
Yeah.
Tell them. Anyway. And of course, also just as entirely too happy to be here, I am Nick Izumi. Really excited. Here we are at another fortnight's edition of Nerd and Tie. And I'm doubly excited because we don't even have to open this one while talking about sad things.
I mean, I could have. People did die since last episode.
Oh.
But we're not going to.
No.
We're not going to.
No.
No, it's not a sad week.
No, we're having a happy week.
Mm-hmm.
We are having a happy week, and I'm going to, I think we should open up the show with something that made the start of my week quite happy. And I'm, of course, talking about, it is the last time a new Star Trek TV show aired, it was 2005.
Right?
It's been more than a decade. That's incredible to me. So even with all of the production issues that have plagued it, even with the awful in trying to make it an incentive to sign up for a streaming service no one wants, Star Trek Discovery broke through. It's the first episode, the first half of the two-part pilot aired on CBS last night, and the rest is only going to air on their stupid streaming service. But let me tell you, the stupid streaming service is one of the only things that left a bad taste in my mouth. Star Trek Discovery, I liked it.
Yeah, so you just saw the CBS episode, right?
I only watched the CBS episode.
Right.
I haven't watched part 2 yet.
I bit the bullet and signed up for CBS All Access, mostly because I'm about to cancel my Showtime since Twin Peaks is over. So I'm just moving my Showtime money over to CBS.
That's legit.
Yeah. And so Yeah. So like it's really what's interesting about this pilot is we still really don't know what the show itself is going to be like, because it is like you as you mentioned in the pre-show, Nick, like it's like if the first episode of Deep Space Nine had been Wolf 359, like
Yeah, just Ben
yeah.
Sisko on his old Miranda class ship. That's what it feels like. Because
Yeah.
the Discovery itself is not in.
Yeah.
The like basically the and as anyone who knows Star Trek knows, the ship, or in some cases the space station, is a member of the main cast. So it's weird that we don't
Yeah.
get to meet the Discovery within the first.
Yeah, because we're focused on Sonequa Martin. What is the rest of her last name? Why do I not remember the easy part of her name to say?
Green?
Green, yes. Green? I forgot the word green. Let's just talk about how I've had a weird day. So she's our point of view character, and most of we start out the 2-part pilot on the Shenzhou.
Which looks like an old Federation ship. Like,
right.
In the early promos, I didn't know how I felt about it, but seeing it more on screen, I'm like, yeah, this looks
it looks a lot
Federation-y.
It looks like it has to be an older ship, because it looks like the design language we see of the Kelvin, which is the 2230s.
Yeah, it's a very Kelvin or even NX-01-esque ship.
Right. But so then people talk about like the Abrams verse design and like having the window as the front screen, but the Kelvin also had that, and the Kelvin was in the prime timeline. So even though overall I really did love these. I watched both episodes. I love both of them. I think the acting's fantastic. I am on board to watch the show. But
Martin Green sells her character.
She's
really
amazing,
hard.
And I'm gonna enjoy the heck out of the show. And I want to be clear about that, because the next words that are gonna come out of my mouth are gonna be, "Oh my God, there's stuff that keeps driving me nuts." So this is 2256. They say immediately it's 2256. What is up with these uniforms? Because first off, we know that in 2254 is when the Cage takes place, because that is 11 years before Kirk takes over the Enterprise, and it's during Pike's first 5-year mission. Because the Enterprise was launched, and the Enterprise was launched before that. The Enterprise was launched in the late 2240s, because Robert April had it for a 5-year mission before Pike had his 2. So it's like they're really locked, and I can take many I can take the regular uniforms not being the same, because if we look at, say, the period of like Deep Space Nine, we had separate uniforms for different duties. Like Voyager and Deep Space Nine had the black uniforms with the shoulders, while Next Generation was still using the red uniforms with the black shoulders. Starfleet, the Enterprise is on deep space missions doing exploration. The Shenzhou is on standard maintenance missions. So maybe Starfleet's using multiple uniforms. So I can get behind. I can deal with that. I can deal with the fact that we're using the chevron Starfleet insignia, even though canonically during the original series it was just the symbol for the Enterprise, because.
Yeah, I remember I was complaining about that during the first when we got that first trailer.
Maybe and I can even come up with justifications for that. Like maybe it was the symbol for all of Starfleet right up until Kirk's era, and then they split off the signs. You know what I mean, for different stuff, and then went back to it or whatever. I can make up shit like crazy for that. I can be okay with Spock having a mystery sibling we didn't know about. An adopted sister. We didn't know about his frickin' half-brother until Star Trek V, so I can deal with that. So the Klingons.
I was about to say, this is really my only pet peeve because I'm with you. I'm kind of with you on the uniforms, but I'm forgiving the uniforms because I think they look really good.
And again, I can go back to Starfleet has more than one uniform in service.
My love of the aesthetic makes me forgive the continuity issues. Ironically, I can't do the same with anything with the Klingon aesthetic.
Like I can take the quadruple nostril as just some racial deviation that we hadn't seen. You know, the fact is there aren't a lot of Asian humans in Star Trek, so you know, like there are racial features that if you just looked at the main cast, you'd miss on a lot of, you know, people. So I can deal with Klingons with bumpier foreheads, with nostrilier nose. I can even say that, hey, maybe it was in style for Klingons to shave their heads. You know what I mean? It's like in the 2260s, the style for Klingons is short hair, while every other time period we've seen them with have long hair. So, you know, it could have just been a thing. I can even take some of the Klingons having bumpy foreheads. Maybe the augment virus wasn't as widespread as we thought it was. But the fact is, in the 2260s, and 100 years before this, we see Klingons with smooth foreheads as the dominant form of Klingon. So I can even take that there was isolated populations that never had it, but why was the Klingon High Council all bumpy-headed? Why is every Klingon bumpy-headed? Literally, if they had just thrown us a bone and thrown in one smooth-headed Klingon, well, you know, in those holograms...
Well, the thing is, though, I'm still, and now granted, I'm only working off the CBS episode. I was assuming that the Klingons we saw were only one extremist fundamentalist sect.
Well,
and that they might not be.
But so I'm not going to spoil anything, but he does have a holographic conversation with the Klingon High Council.
Okay.
And so we only see them in hologram form, but he has a conversation.
I would wonder, I don't know, I just feel like they would make the decision to, like, keep them all bumpy-headed, because otherwise, I don't know, people who aren't as into Star Trek as you guys are might not recognize them as Klingon, and that's
but honestly,
decision to make, of course.
But there are people who aren't into Star Trek who are actually confused that they were Klingons because they look so different from every other version of Klingon we've ever seen.
I was about to say, my bigger issue, like the bumpy-headed thing, I'm actually completely with you on, Gen, is that for the casual fans, they want to make the Klingons look familiar. I get that. I can agree with that decision. What throws me is more the aesthetic of everything else. Their uniforms, their blades, their ships. We have had a really consistent image of what Klingon ships look like between lots of eras. And I mean, you look at Klingon battle cruisers that were in service during the Jonathan Archer era, you know, 100 years before this, and they look like they are a natural
evolution.
Evolution to the battle cruisers we saw in the original series.
I will say,
and the battle cruisers look like they match the Bird of Prey and the Katinga, etc. But
so the only reason, so I know what you're talking about, because there's a moment where a bunch of Klingon ships jump in. Right. And the design language on a lot of them looks really wrong.
Extremely.
I will say there were some of the ships that, if you look closely, actually do fall in line with like the D5, like from Enterprise and the early Bird of Prey, but those are only a couple of them. Like there's like 3 or 4 of them in that fleet that show up that look right, and the rest of them all look wrong.
Well, like the new like the main ship that the Klingon fundamentalist was on, I was like, well, it has a long neck. That's Klingon.
Well, I thought the main ship looked really good as this is a bunch of crazy people ship.
Well, yeah, exactly. But then when the rest of the Klingon ship showed up, I'm like,
I thought that main ship was going to be an ancient ship originally, and then the rest of there are some that just come in that don't look remotely Klingon. That I would have been. I'm trying to think of species 8472 design language was in there, not Klingon.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. So that was
But here's there were enough little ships in there that matched the right design language that I could have given that a pass. You know what I mean?
That was really the only thing that bothered me
yeah.
was the Klingon aesthetic.
Yeah.
Their armor, their
the armor doesn't
blades,
bother me. The armor didn't bother me at all, only because I just figured it's fashion. Because if you look at what they're wearing in the 2260s, like if you go from here, it's really actually I could draw a line from here to the Klingon military uniforms of the 2260s, which the gold chainmail shirt. And so there was a lot more of that gold color in this armor that you don't see in later stuff.
That's true. Okay.
So I think the problem is that Next Generation uniformed a lot of the different time periods of Klingons into the gray shoulder pads. Like, regardless of whether you were looking at stuff from hundreds of years ago to like the current time frame to the future. Because, like, if you look at the sheer differences in the human fashion, like in the Starfleet uniforms of Archer's time, and then compared it to the Next Generation, like if you compare,
right.
you compare Kirk's uniform to the onesie.
Right. No, I know what you mean.
So that's why, like, Klingon armor is just clothes. You know what I mean? Like, as long as you're not.
Which actually brings me back around to a point about something that and I forgot where I was going with that. I'm sorry.
Spain.
I drank water and it.
Use your words.
No, no, that's what it was. It's funny you'd mention specifically Next Generation because Star Trek has had a legitimate problem that people recognize, but no one was really willing to address. And that problem was that really since Next Generation, for better or for worse, like you said, Trey, things got really uniform.
Yeah.
But that also meant from the basically after DS9 ended, the Rick Berman, Brannon Braga recipe for Star Trek became very cookie cutter. And Star Trek kind of has been running in place. It was basically running in place, doing exactly the same thing for its last few years on TV. Now, I'm not saying that there weren't good episodes of Voyager, and I'm not saying there weren't good episodes of Enterprise, but no one was really willing to think outside the box.
Well, they were chasing Baywatch. I'm not kidding. They were chasing Baywatch. There is a lot of the Enterprise decisions behind the scenes that were trying to attract the Baywatch viewers. Like,
weird.
You have to understand, man, like, before internet porn, there was a whole other phenomenon going on. Like, kids today do not understand how a show like Baywatch happened. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of stuff that happened there that was just because it was what people could get. And it sounds terrible, and it is terrible. But like if there's literal stuff from like the producers like trying to go after the Baywatch viewers.
Well, and I get that, but that doesn't excuse the fact that even not counting that, every episode Encounter started turning into the same
but that's what it is
that rinse repeat pattern.
But that's why it turned into that. Is they actually simplified. They wanted to simplify the stories on purpose. Like they purposely made Star Trek less complex. It's very, very clear in Enterprise's decisions. Like there are hints of it in Voyager, but really Enterprise is where they went. I mean, that's why Enterprise got the cover of a Rod Stewart song for its theme song. It's why they didn't put Star Trek in the title for the first season. It's
I think the first two seasons.
The first two seasons, yeah. And then when they realized, oh hey, those people who made our earlier shows successful might have been bothered by some of these decisions.
Yeah, it was, and that's. I think that's one of the things that I was most excited about with Discovery, and even just with the one episode I saw, is that it is very familiar. It is very obviously Star Trek, but really unlike anything that the TV end of Star Trek has done recently, it's actually trying to do new things.
Yeah.
it's doing things on a grander scale. It's doing things in a more interesting way. Or I shouldn't just say that it's automatically more interesting, but it's doing things in a very different way and going for a more serialized style of storytelling,
Yeah.
which Trek doesn't have a long history with. But I think that it's important if we're going to keep Star Trek alive
Well,
that
Deep
we
Space Nine.
acknowledge. Okay, yeah, Deep Space Nine did that, and then they went back to ignoring that for
Yeah.
what you were saying by simplifying the plots.
Yes, exactly.
But
It's yeah. Well, Enterprise tried to do a more serialized story, sort of like they wanted to, but also weren't allowed to. Like,
yeah,
I
I
mean,
remember because season 3 was where they actually started to figure out what they wanted to be,
yeah, and then it got axed.
which was too late. like,
Pretty much.
and I just thought this was such a breath of fresh air because again, it was clearly Star Trek. It was clearly very loving of the things that Trek fans loved before now,
Yeah.
and it wasn't trying to pretend that it was cooler than that, which I think sometimes the Abrams movies were trying to do.
Yeah. Although
Of
Beyond is amazing.
well, yeah, no, Star Trek Beyond is in my top 3 favorite
Well,
Trek movies.
so
But
the out of out of the Kelvin timeline movies, which as to not call it the Abrams verse because Simon Pegg, Justin Lin, and that guy that Simon Pegg wrote with deserve their credit for Beyond.
well, yeah, but in this case it fits because the J.J. Abrams movies were the problem.
Right. But to go back to what I was trying to say there is that the Star Trek 2009 is what I refer to a good movie on accident. Because again, if you listen to the director's commentary, they made a lot of good decisions for the wrong reasons, and we just got lucky and got a good movie. I think the only thing that kind of has me nervous with Discovery is Alex Kurtzman's involvement now that Brian Fuller is not there anymore.
True. Yeah.
But that said, the first two episodes turned out really well. So,
I think this was a fantastic start. I stand by everything I've said about CBS All Access. It's stupid.
yes.
I don't support it. And it makes my stomach turn at the idea that subscribing to it might pay for more episodes of Young Sheldon. Frankly.
Sorry.
It's how I feel. That's my honest. I don't wanna think that my money might go toward that, but at least this is a good show.
So
At least this is the Star Trek I was waiting for.
So what you're gonna do is come spring after all 15 episodes have aired, because they're taking a break. Like they're gonna air the first half of the season through November, and then they're gonna take a break for like 2 months, and then air the rest of the season. What you're gonna do is in spring take that free trial week, watch the entire series, and then cancel the subscription before you get charged for CBS All Access.
Yeah, that seems like a good idea.
Yeah, right? Like that was my original plan, but I'm way too impatient. Like, well, first off, an important thing to note is I don't get CBS over the air in Eau Claire. I get every network but CBS over the air. And so I had to, literally the only way to watch CBS where I live is either get cable or pay for all access. And since I'm a cord cutter, I am not going to give Spectrum, which is what they're calling the merged Charter Comcast. I'm not giving them my money. So, yeah.
The only reason that I saw it on air, I have an antenna, but one, CBS doesn't come in too clearly, and two, my dad invited me over, and we've watched every Star Trek pilot that I've been alive for, so
that's nice.
I got to watch it together, so that was fun.
I used to watch Star Trek with my mom and dad when I was growing up.
It was cool too. Because as we were watching it, it was my mom, my dad, and me, and my dad and I were both getting really into the minor bits of minutia and the little Star Trek things because two lifelong fans, and my mom was more of a casual fan, but even she was really getting into it. So I felt that was a good sign for the show that both the the very hardcore fans and the very casual fan were all enjoying it for the same reason.
Yeah.
Or for many of the same reasons, and I think it was a good show. Yeah. I can't wait to see more. Good job, CBS.
Yeah.
Bad job on your streaming service. That's stupid. Stop bragging about how many people are signing up for your streaming service. They're not going to stick around.
I want to put it, they haven't said how many it was. They've said how many people viewed the show. They have said it set a record for, like, day of signups for CBS All Access. But they have not told us how many people it was. For all I know, it was like me and one other guy. You know, so I'm just saying. So, speaking of things that feel like J.J. Abrams.
J.J. Abrams.
J.J. Abrams, as his friends call him. J.J. Abrams, last episode of the day after we put out, the day after we recorded the last episode of the podcast, where we talked heavily about Colin Trevorrow's being fired from directing episode 9 of Star Wars, to, you know, we talked about who could be taking over episode 9 from Trevorrow, because it needs to go into pre-production pretty soon here. And, well, the next day, they announced it, who it was, who's going to do it. And the answer is, of course, J.J. Abrams. J.J. Abrams, who, of course, directed episode 7, and the fandom cried out in either, oh, that's not a bad decision, or, oh my God, it's the worst thing ever. Oh my God.
Yeah, there was.
Oh my God.
That was the weird part, was that most people, that there was no middle ground, or excuse me, I guess there was a middle ground, but it really was only the middle ground and the extreme negative. I didn't hear anyone who was like, this is super positive.
Well,
I heard some people who were like, oh, JJ, that's fine.
Yeah, like, we're like, oh, okay, that's, like, I wasn't, like, super excited when I heard it, but I love episode 7. Is the more I watch it, the more it's becoming my favorite Star Wars movie. I know that obviously, you know, there's a preference for Rogue One, but Mr. Izumi over there, but
I still like episode 7.
Right.
It's not a bad movie.
And it's true, I have literally said that J.J. Abrams is not the best at finishing things. So that's the reason I'm a little bit like, okay, but I'm cautiously optimistic. It's not like he doesn't know the franchise. You know, the fact is,
also Kathleen Kennedy is clearly
ruling this with an iron fist.
Mm-hmm.
Which I like about her.
See, that's the thing that really bummed me out, is just how many people who were upset with the J.J. Abrams thing also were just upset that Kathleen Kennedy is still in charge. Like, I saw a lot of people who that's what they were more upset about.
She's given us 2 great movies so far.
Yeah, but it's...
Well, it's... But 7 was just a rehash of A New Hope, even though it was purposely, in many ways, a rehash of The New Hope, because it hit the same story beats as Episode 1 and Episode 4, because you know what Episode 1 was? A rehash of A New Hope.
But then... And Rogue One didn't do anything new. It was just the same stuff we've seen before. It was
people actually dying in the Star Wars universe, man. It was war shown realistically from a different lens than a hero's journey, which is an important part of the story to tell without distracting from the... Okay, so I'm okay with J.J. Abrams. It does mean Episode 9 has been delayed till December of 2019.
I'm good with that, though, because I don't want them to rush out.
Yeah. It means Han Solo is going to be the only one scheduled for a May release. All the other Star Wars have come out in December, and I think I thought the May release is a bad idea. Like, I think May release.
I'm excited for one of those movies, and it's not Han Solo.
Well, here's the thing. The great thing about the December release is that there's not as much competition in the blockbuster action film genre. You know what I mean? It's like other big movies come out in December often many years, but usually like Star Wars has been like the big sci-fi epic, where in the summer schedule you have to compete with the Marvel, with which they make the Marvel movies too. They compete with the Marvel movies, the DC movies, whatever Transformer thing Paramount's crapping out. Like, every other studio, and even your own studio, is making material that's going to detract from a Star Wars release that time of year, where in December, like, Marvel movies don't come out in December. You know, they come out in, like, usually the latest part of the year they come out is November. So, like, it's given it a nice little, like, isolated spot in the calendar. And also, frankly, Star Wars movies are movies that's fun to see more than once. And if they're in theaters around New Year's and people have days off and people can go to see movies more than once, like, I have off, like, I went and saw episode 7 like 3 times in the theaters because of the time of year it came out. I could, you know.
I will admit I saw Rogue One twice.
Yeah, like, so that's why it's a good thing that episode 9 is moving back to December, in my opinion. So yeah, I think that's the best move all around. So J.J. Abrams, we're all, again, what are your thoughts on J.J. Abrams coming back? What do you think? Again, have you seen episode 7?
Yes,
okay.
I'm caught up with the Star Wars films. Unlike a lot of other things. I'm fine with it. I don't have much against, like, I don't really have anything against it.
What were your thoughts on episode 7? Because that was from before you joined the show.
I really enjoyed it, and just, like, I liked all the new stuff they tried with it. The different viewpoints and new characters and diversity, and just
see, Hollywood, there's your consumer right there in the middle. Like, she's the one that, like, Nick and I, we're crazy geeks. Well, Gen's a crazy geek, but not about this.
Yeah.
This isn't about video games or Lord of the Rings. It's, you know, Star Wars. So there's your consumer opinion.
Although Lord of the Rings versus Star Wars is a video game I would play. Just saying.
I think that Star Wars would win only because, you know, Death Star.
Yeah, you know that we got it. Yes, sir.
Eagles can't make it to the Death Star.
No, but how far into the lore of each of them are we going? Because if we're getting into, like, you know, the Silmarillion with, like, technically the gods of Middle-earth, then...
I was about to say, there are ancient, terrible monster gods.
Well, I didn't say Tolkien. Like, I said Lord of the Rings.
Versus Death Star. Like, that is a battle I would definitely watch.
First off, I said Lord of the Rings, not Tolkien.
Okay, that's fair.
So I narrowed the scope. I was about to
say, because there are some ancient Tolkien monsters that would make Cthulhu crap his pants.
Well, I'd still watch, like, maybe a couple Balrogs go up against the Death Star. That'd be pretty fun.
Second.
See him try to whip it.
Mm-hmm.
Whip it good.
And then, I don't know. Balrogs are made of fire, so I don't know how much lasers would do to them.
I don't know. Speaking of magic and going dark.
Yeah, so when I was a youngin' back in the 90s, there was this hit show called Sabrina the Teenage Witch, and I made sure to sit down and catch it every single time it came on. It was really good, and so it's very interesting to me when I heard that because Riverdale is doing so well, they are going to be making a spin-off / reboot of Sabrina the Teenage Witch. But this time, instead of the kooky, hilarious Melissa Joan Hart version, it seems to be that they're going kind of with a darker and spookier version, which, as a spooky, you know, horror fan, I'm all for. I'm excited.
It's a really crazy idea.
Yeah.
I'm.
Well, it's going to be based off the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina comic, which is
part of the Archieverse.
Yeah, it was made as kind of a it doesn't take place in the primary Archie timeline. It's kind of a spiritual sequel to Afterlife with Archie, but not continuity connected to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's but the guy who wrote that comic, like the Roberto Aguirre Sacasa, he's the one who's going to run the show.
That's awesome.
So the guy who wrote the highly successful, darker reboot is the one who's going to be writing the spin-off. So that's a good sign. See, I know that Nick hates Riverdale.
I do, very deeply.
But I love Riverdale so much.
Someone has to. And sure as hell ain't me.
My wife and I watched Riverdale, and we loved it, and we're big fans.
Riverdale made me want to punch babies.
I mean, I've been an Archie Comics fan since I was a small child.
That's why it confuses me that you like the show. It's such a...
Because I've seen so many versions of these characters that this version doesn't offend me because it is there's like...
Okay, let me speak in a language that I know we both know. Here's the thing. I'm not opposed to different versions of characters, but there's a big difference between I like animated Optimus Prime and I like Prime Optimus Prime and I like movie Optimus Prime. It's the same thing for me with Riverdale. It's like these characters are so far off the mark from what
I disagree.
Expect them to be. Okay, name something clumsy Archie did. Name one clumsy thing.
Slept with his teacher, fell right in there on accident.
That's not clumsy. That's also kind of one of the core things about the character is that he tries to always do the right thing.
He does always try to do the right thing in the show.
So, you know what? Banging a teacher does not seem like something that he would do.
So you're saying people people who make mistakes can't be redeemable?
No, that's not what I'm saying. But I am saying that Archie Andrews, if he's the kind of person who, quote, always does the right thing, no one would say to him, "You're a dangerous person, Archie," which they say in the first episode.
Yeah, well,
in the god-awful first episode of that god-awful show.
That show is great.
You're welcome to
it's Archie meets Twin Peaks, and I love it.
That sounds terrible.
It's amazing, and I love it. Do I think there are a couple of missed opportunities? Yes, but it doesn't change the fact that I love it. Fight me.
I'm doing that right now. I'm telling you it's a crappy show.
Wait, you can't see my camera, so you can't see that my fists are in a comically cartoonish boxing position.
Oh, are you going to fisticuffs now?
Fisticuffs.
What do I
are you gonna mash his potatoes?
What have I got? I've got. Oh wait.
We're gonna spin his barnacles until they don't crack no more.
Oh God, I got the fork.
I'll cream your corn.
There's a little bit of rice in it.
Queensberry rules. First man to say uncle spins around 3 times.
I just watched the episode of DS9 where Q tries to box Cisco.
I watched that last week. I love that so much. That's just the best. Picard wouldn't hit me. I'm not Picard.
I'm not Picard. Dear God. Anyway, so, well, whatever. Doing a grim dark reboot of Sabrina could be fun. I could see that working.
Well, and I think a lot of people who just remember the Melissa Joan Hart show don't realize that Sabrina the Teenage Witch came from Archie Comics, was a spin-off comic of the main Archie Comics. Just like people who might not have realized that Josie and the Pussycats came from the Archie Comics main line. It's such a So I think that there are people who are going to be really confused when elements from the Melissa Joan Hart show don't show up, but, Salem will be there. He'll just want blood. No, I don't know.
I've never
haven't read.
seen the Melissa Joan Hart show. My wife absolutely loved it. But
Yeah, it's.
You've never seen it?
And good.
Never seen it. No.
It's like Clarissa Explains It All with magic.
Yeah.
And a talking cat.
I grew up in a one TV household with parents who were kind of elitist about what got put on the TV at night. So, yeah.
Poor
Understandable,
bastards.
but it does have like the best and most sassy talking cat.
Yeah, that's really that is the selling point that everyone tells me about is
Salem,
you have
yeah.
to see the talking cat.
Yep, you have to see Salem.
There are 2 acceptable names for black cats if you own them. Luna if it's a girl, and Salem if it's a boy.
And then there's Whiskey Bumbles.
Oh, Whiskey Bumbles. I like that.
Who is the bumbliest?
Ooh. So that oh god, are we gonna have to go dark?
That was a shout out to
Speaking of grimdark.
I'm happy we got to do a shout out to our regular listener, Whiskey Bumbles, though. I know he'll appreciate that.
Yep.
Anyway.
I feel like there's a reference happening that I don't know. But
Val's cat.
Val's cat, yeah.
Oh, okay. But what does Bal actually listen to the show?
Val listens to the show?
Bal, if you listen to the show, you should totally write something in the mailbag.
Yes.
All right. Or have your cat do it.
Yes.
So
I want to read a letter from Whiskey Bumbles.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just saying. Like, and actually, this is the challenge to you, the listener. Even if you're not Bal or Bal's cat, just write us a letter about what you think Whiskey Bumbles would tell us right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Go to nerdandtie.com.
Or have your cat write us a letter.
nerdandtie.com/contact. There's a whole form. Or you can call and leave a voicemail at 414-375-0480 if Whiskey Bumbles would like to speak into a phone and leave a voicemail for us.
Or any cat.
Or any cat.
Who has a cat.
If you have a cat,
please.
we would love to hear from your cat.
We want to hear from your cat is what we're getting at.
Oh, I have to segue out of cat adorableness into the most awful news story
back to the grimdark.
Of the most awful news story of this of the episode. And there's you know how the world is awful and we're all forced to live in it? Well, Anime Punch was a convention in Columbus, Ohio. It's not anymore. So Anime Punch's organizers have officially decided to disband and hold no more events. Convention staff announced that they would cease all future operations in a statement on their official Facebook page that they made on September 14th. And if you're wondering why this is, it's because Anime Punch founder convention chair Michael, and I'm going to say his name wrong, Berlin, Beurlein, or as he's affectionately known in the community, Pedo Mike. That is a real nickname. Has pled guilty to sexual battery.
Jeez.
For assaulting a young woman in Virginia. So he pled guilty to sexual battery in the state of Virginia on September 5th. This is a misdemeanor. It is believed that he is pretty much just going to be serving. He's going to be out on like probation, effectively. But he had registered as a sex offender. So yeah, there's a lengthy Facebook thread that if you go back to our article on this, links to a lot of allegations. I will say that this Michael Berlin guy, I first heard about actually quite some time ago, but was never able to get anyone to go on the record. So I've just been kind of waiting according to what I've been able to piece together, he shoved his hand down a young woman's pants at a convention in Virginia.
Ew.
Yeah, no, like it's, and while this is technically a misdemeanor in the state of Virginia, apparently, at least, at the very
Mm-hmm.
least, like some people have talked about this being like, oh, this is so great that finally got busted, except he's like getting no punishment, and this
I'm
is
about to
just
say, yeah,
really
that's like he's just getting a slap on the wrist.
yeah, like I mean, this is, but at least we can say that, you know,
I've got to step off screen
yep,
for just a
yep,
second. I'll be right
yep.
back.
Yeah, so that was, it's like, oh my god, how does this, like, how does this happen? This is the frustrating thing is that, again, like, some of us have known about this guy for years, but haven't been able to say or do anything because people wouldn't go, like, as reporters, we require, like, we need someone to go on the record to write about something. We need, like, something to happen. Like, now we can say that, now when if he ever tries to get involved in the convention scene again, we can go, Michael Berlin, who in September of 2017 pled guilty to sexual battery, like, now there's a convicted crime, and now it's easier to get the word out. But like, this guy has been doing this for like, there are stories going back some time, and like of people who had negative encounters with this gentleman, but at least now someone finally did something about it. Now you may be asking yourself, why did the rest of the convention disband? Because Dragon Con, one of their co-founders, was a convicted pedophile, and the convention carried on just getting rid of him. Like, the rest of the people still ran a con. Well, the problem is that Anime Punch's staff, a bunch of them tried to defend the guy online for like a week. And it doesn't, like, I've seen some posts and some private messages where these guys are trying to like defend a guy who literally, again, committed sexual battery, like, admitted to it. And so I'm just like, how do you, like, you can't dig yourself out of that. I will say though, like, I mean, but that that little section of people still, like, kind of trying to defend him makes me, say that maybe none of these people should be organizing conventions. That's just me.
Yeah.
What do you think, Gan?
Yeah. I don't know how smart they are, so that would be one of my reasons why they shouldn't be running a convention. Sorry, but if, like, he pled guilty and you're trying to say that no, he's not, like,
Right.
no, he literally pled guilty.
No, I believe the one that's like, it's just a misdemeanor. I'm like, no, but he did the thing. It's like, how screwed up the laws in Virginia are isn't the question.
Yeah. It's like, think for a
I'd like to apologize.
millisecond.
Sorry about that. I have to apologize to the audience. My father showed up because he was having car trouble. So.
Oh, we should clearly put him on the mic.
Okay. Anyway.
Oh, all right.
I was saying
So-
a thing.
Yeah, again.
Yeah. Finish your thought, Ken. Sorry.
I will if I can remember it.
I screwed it up.
No, it's okay.
Next time you just re-enter quietly and then rejoin the conversation mid-flow.
Yeah.
The audio listeners didn't even know you'd gone.
Yeah.
Oops.
Because we were talking about these dimwits defending the dude.
How can people defend that?
Well, okay, so that's the
I
thing
want
that
them
happened,
to
yeah.
think for a millisecond about, like, if you have a guy whose nickname
His nickname
for
is Pedo
I don't know
Mike.
how long includes the word pedo. Like, how safe are people gonna feel at your convention? Like, ugh. So, I think they're dum-dums. That's my thought.
Well, or they're creepy themselves. They're maybe not
That-
as creepy, as the guy who committed sexual battery, but
Yeah. It's just one big old creep show.
It's really disgusting.
Anime Punch, we're glad you're dead.
And I guess so. Just gross. Just super, super gross.
Yeah, this is the world we. Yeah, I mean, I guess like it's the only positive takeaway I can come with is that at least something happened. At least this is a permanent thing that the community can like. News articles can be written now, and his face can get put out there for everyone. And I still am so irritated with how little punishment there was.
I was about to say, but like nothing happened. Like people ask, why so few victims come forward? Because like half the time, all these scumbags get is a slap on the wrist. He admitted to it. Then again, we had one guy admit to it, and he's the president now. So everything just
awesome sauce.
Yep.
Oh God, take us to our next story, Nick.
So here's this is one that I'm going to.
It's one that he did not see coming.
It is one I did not see coming. This is also a weird one because this is a story that I would qualify as good news, and I think most of us would qualify as good news. But the internet latched onto it in completely the wrong way.
Because Bleeding Cool wrote a highly misleading headline.
So this is basically the Rose City Comic Con. Rose City Comic Con made a very firm stance in their convention guidelines about what was and was not allowed for cosplay. And this included any and all Nazi paraphernalia.
Yeah.
They specifically say no historically accurate Nazi uniforms, no retro Hydra uniforms, no retro Red Skull. That is what they said.
Yeah, and we should point out this is an addendum they just added after this year's convention.
But this is, frankly, it's only the reasonable thing to do.
Yeah.
Especially with where current events are, it's way too easy for Nazis to find a place to blend in, and I have trouble even trying to make the best of it's a Nazi uniform, but it's from X anime, so it's okay.
Yeah.
No, absolutely not.
So we should talk about what actually happened. So what happened is before they had just a policy which was hate symbols were banned, and now it specifically calls out Nazi uniforms. And so the reason this happened was because at this year's Rose City Comic Con not that long ago, a couple weeks ago, two guys showed up in what were effectively detail accurate SS uniforms, only with the swastika armbands replaced with a bright pink armband with Hello Kitty on it. I think there were some other pink accents. I've seen a photo of the costumes. And so they were claiming that they were ironic. They were claiming that they weren't really Nazi uniforms because they had Hello Kitty on them instead of swastikas. Like, this is really what happened. So the con initially kind of waffled on what to do, and then eventually decided that this is not okay, this is not permissible. And so what they updated their policy, pretty much what the policy is that you can't take an accurate Nazi uniform and just swap out the armband and pretend it's not a Nazi uniform. That's really what this is. So when they talk about Hydra cosplay, they're not talking about you dressing up like, any Hydra cosplay. They're talking about specifically a Nazi uniform with the Hydra logo instead of a swastika. They're saying that's still a Nazi uniform. I see people the Hydra's not real. It's
times.
It's the point isn't that it's Hydra. The point is that it's a Nazi uniform. If you want to cosplay if you want to cosplay the Red Skull in a suit, if you want to,
you're pretty much fine.
Yeah, you're fine.
He's got other outfits.
He's got lots of other outfits.
The Red Skull's got a ton of outfits. You can cosplay any of them. You just can't wear a World War II uniform. You know, you can't wear a Nazi uniform Red Skull costume.
Well,
Like,
you know, the irony of this. The irony of this is that for Hydra has kind of gone back and forth in the comics, depending on who's writing as to whether or not they're actually Nazis.
yeah.
But they became proxies for Nazis, especially after Disney took over, and they didn't want to put Nazi logos on Captain America bad guy toys.
Well, also, then there's limits to how you can release the film in Germany.
Well, yeah, that too. But I'm just saying, like, we've had lots of stuff like that. They did it in the cartoons too. Hell, one of my favorite figures in my toy collection that I don't like bringing out now because of current events is I have a Red Skull action figure that is literally Hasbro made it, so they made a retro style Red Skull head sculpt, and the body was taken literally. It's the same body part from their GI Joe toy line of one of the SS officers. They just painted Hydra logos onto the armband.
Wow.
Like, that's how easy it is for people to.
Yeah.
This was a Comic-Con exclusive, by the way, but yeah. I found it in a $2 bin. That's beside the point. But yeah, but that's how easy these people had it, is that they could literally put together these SS uniforms and be like, oh no, it's Hydra. No.
Yeah.
Not okay.
I mean, the
right
fact is that, like, we literally have people like the Furry Raiders out there, and we have, like, all of these, like, there are white supremacists in fandom. We have to deal with them. And we, as a convention community, need to be saying this isn't a home for Nazis. So if you want to cosplay Hydra, if you want to cosplay modern Hydra, if you want to cosplay, you know, Hydra, the Red Skull, you can do that. You just can't do it at this con in a Nazi uniform. Like, the fact is that, like, No Brand Con, the con I work for, already would have banned this. Like, it would have been considered a hate symbol. Now, like, there are some questions, though, about, like, Hetalia cosplay, which I think is actually, like, I hate Hetalia so much because of everything about Hetalia. I hate Hetalia because of Hetalia.
Yeah.
It made casual racist jokes a-okay at conventions for some people, and that bothers me.
I never, like, I know too much about history to be able to find any of it funny.
Trey, I have a history degree. How do you think I feel?
I think you feel the same way that I do.
Sometimes worse, depending on what part of the show someone tried to show me.
Oh dear. Well, no, I've never watched any of it. Like, I read enough about it and read what the plot was, and Germany having a crazy boss, that I was like, yeah, 6 million
it was,
dead. Crazy.
For me, honestly, my takeaway from it was, I was like, this is really uncomfortable. Like, if you were going to do something like this, there might be a way to make this funny, but because I'm a historian, I have to get through the depressing stuff I read about through some way or another. So I think if the show would have gone way darker, it would be a funny satire, but instead it's just innocuous.
Like, where's the scene where Germany and Russia cut Poland in half gruesomely and violate the corpse? Where's that part? Because I think that would be a required part of any version of this story. I'm just saying.
See, if I wrote something like that, it would be like it would be like Latvia not having a personality until Russia comes and tries to take its lunch money, and then suddenly it really cares about the fact that it's Latvia again. That's my culture. We are defined by whether or not Russia has invaded us.
Let's just all agree Italia is wrong.
Well, and you know, it's been interesting, especially at the anime convention scene, because there are so many, partly because of Japan being an Axis power in World War II, and general Japanese pop culture not having the stigma on Nazis that we have. It's been interesting seeing the anime community react to this, and I look at shows that I like, even where I'm really uncomfortable with seeing where people have taken it. Characters from Hellsing Ultimate, where the entire premise of the last half of that show is the literal Dracula hunting down undead Nazis. Um, you have even the current the current series from the Fate series, Fate Apocrypha. One of the main villains is a former Nazi who used his connections to the Reich to help steal the Holy Grail. I mean,
Jesus.
like you see all of these, like it keeps coming up in anime, and it's so problematic, like especially dealing with some of these younger people who just don't get, no, it's not okay.
Yeah.
Even if you like the character, it's not okay. I don't care that he's a cat boy. That's a Hitler Youth uniform.
That's one of the biggest problems with Hitalia, is because like it has always been, in my eyes, a show, a genre, something that the younger people have
Mhm.
greatly attached themselves to. In its heyday, now it's the partly because the costumes are fairly easy to put together, but like you might nowadays still see younger people, you know, still cosplaying it, still
Yeah.
wearing the flag capes and
I am
nonsense.
not comfortable with it at all.
Luckily, most of it's died.
I know, right? I was so happy. Like, I just remember that, like, people, like, you know what it is? It's like, and now that Homestuck is actually, dying out itself.
Maybe not, because there's been a recent video game release
Oh, the game, yeah.
of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
But
it's getting a tiny bit of resurgence.
But the Homestuck fans are older now, so they've
no,
kind of.
but
No.
what I was gonna say is that was the, like, people complained about Homestuck, but you know what? I loved Homestuck. I loved everything about Homestuck. You know why I loved it? Because it wasn't Hitalia, and there was less Hitalia on the floor because of all these Homestuck people. And I'm like, seal your paint, but after that, we're good. Consider gloves. But like, I was like, thank God for you stupid people in your web media, because I hesitate to call it a web comic because it's so multimedia intensive. Like, thank God you love your little thing that I'm not into at all, because even though it's not my thing, it's like not racist. Thank you for liking something that's not racist.
At least it's not. That should not be something that should be like the minimum level of what makes things okay. Well, at least it's not.
Well,
racist.
at least it doesn't.
What the hell?
At least it doesn't, support a white supremacist agenda. Oh well, okay. Well then,
Right.
that sounds like great. I'm like, I'm fine with people, because I long ago learned that I'm not the target demographic for everything. I learned that with Dragon Ball Z because I am old, and like, you just learn to be okay with people liking things that you're not into. Like, not everything is made for me, and that's okay. And as long as it's not racist or awful or probably as long as it's not like doing harm, I'm all okay with you cosplaying whatever you want from it.
Yep.
But
Same.
yeah, and it was just. I don't know if we clarified this because we got so caught up in it, but that was the really dumb thing, was like the fine folks at was it Bleeding Cool, did you say? Or
Yeah, Bleeding Cool.
Yeah, Bleeding Cool just posted that Rose City Comic Con banned Hydra cosplay.
Yeah,
which
they
is
said
not
bans Hydra and
what
Red Skull
happened.
cosplay. I was like, no, they called those out as examples of, like, look, if you put on Hugo Weaving's costume from Captain America: The First Avenger, you're dressed up like a Nazi. Don't do that.
Mhm.
Like, shit ain't hard. And so many people are like, oh, I'm like, oh God, you jackass. Like, honestly, the thread in
I all I'm reminded of is a favorite line of mine from the first season of Agents of Shield, The the Red Skull was a big fat Nazi, Ward. It's the first thing it says about him in history books.
Oh.
Yep.
All right. Well, we should move on to our final segment, which is not the mailbag.
The mailbag is empty. I'm just
This has been happening
I'm looking at it. There's a sad looking cricket in there, and that's it.
Langland, where's your letter? Random, you've been pretty good lately, but you missed this week. Archimize.
Yeah, hey, get on it, buddy.
And all of your cats.
And all of your cats.
Each and every one. If listeners, if you have a cat, we want a letter from them.
If you have multiple cats, we want letters from each of them.
Yes.
And voicemails.
We want letters and voicemails for all your cats. Remember, you can write to us at nerdandtie.com/contact, or you can call us at area code 414-375-0480. And if you call the voicemail, we will literally play audio of you. So it's funny, we have had people call the voicemail, but none of them are things I would play on the show. Mostly just one person really, really, really wanting us to write about their thing that they says have to do with Star Wars, but really doesn't have to do with Star Wars, because the guy it's about died a decade before Star Wars. But, other people could call us, besides that one crazy lady. Speaking of crazy, let's go to the Vomit Hat Steve Challenge then, our final segment. The Vomit Hat Steve Challenge is, of course, the part of the show where I pick up a book and I read you a line from it, and the challenge to you, the listeners, to guess what book it is. The benefits of guessing the book is you get included in the Hall of Awesome, and in the Hall of Awesome, you get your name listed on our website. We read your name aloud every episode, and it's a fun little game. It's free, it's fun, it's easy. If you've read every book that ever existed. So, the current members of the Hall of Awesome are as follows: Archimize Zero, Renan Senti, Cheesy McDammy, Krista, Slither D, Seamus Tucker, The Random Wamblings Man, Corfan, Capito, Chris Graham, Millie Paper Godzilla, Cavsy, Minnesota Librarians, Sean Orange, Keith Shuzuo, and Sakura Sunset. There's them. And now, I will dramatically and slowly open the book that I've been reading for a while, and it's going to take me a minute. Well, it takes a minute to get the, that is not the book. That is the KeekCon Articles of Association. All right.
Oh. I wonder why you have those pulled out.
All right. Here is your line from the book. If one thing was clearer than another in her voyage, it was that she could be trusted to come out right and in safety, though at the same time I always stood ready to give her the benefit of even the least doubt. If you know what book that's from, go to nerdandtie.com/contact and tell us. If you want to tell us anything else, have your cat say stuff, explain why Nick would look awesome with a mohawk, explain why Gen needs to just wear more color. If just any of these things, I don't know.
Not gonna happen.
If you want to say, if you want to explain how I could possibly cosplay Kravitron Z instead of Shamra during an episode,
I believe you can.
Just go ahead, go to nerdandtie.com/contact, click on the form, or again, you can call us at 414-375-0480. Yeah. Nick, take us out.
All right. Well, thank you once again for joining us this fortnight for a nice short episode of Nerd and Tie. It was such a pleasure to talk to you guys about all this good stuff. Remember to help us out. Throw us a little love. We, of course, do have the legal fund still going at the website.
GoFundMe.com/nerdandtie.
Both Trey and I have our respective Patreons. The Patreon.com/Nickizumi, and of course Patreon.com/TreyGorn, correct?
Yes, with the G.
With the G.
With the G, yo.
You can buy, again, a coffee at, again, what's that website?
I think it's just ko-fi.com.
Benjamin,
Heck.
there's a link on the website. Remember,
I gotta get to the homepage.
subscribe to us
Check out
on
I was
iTunes.
looking at an article.
Yeah, check us out on iTunes, Stitcher,
Google Play,
Google Play,
YouTube.
and, are we YouTube? Yeah, of course.
If you're watching us on YouTube, you should hit the subscribe button and then hit the little bell to get the notifications like a fancy man. Also, subscribe to the channel Nick Izumi, where Nick's videos go up if you want to get all of his, video essay goodness.
Mm-hmm. Working on a new one about the Fate series, actually, so check that out. And of course, remember to be good to your friends, be good to each other. We can't wait to hear from you again on Nerd and Tie. And remember, I am Nick Izumi.
I'm Trey Doran.
I'm Benjamin.
And as always, I want you all to keep on spocking in the free world. Good night, everybody.
Wow. Right up to the end, man. That Klingon looks weird. I'm just saying.
He's a weird Klingon.